Hello again. Over the past almost 2 years, a number of key trends in the future of work have accelerated in pace, particularly remote and hybrid working, digitalization, automation, and ED&I. And over the next 40 minutes or so, I will be discussing these topics with 3 senior executives from our client companies in Ireland. To my far right is Padraig Fitzgerald, Senior R&D Director and Site Lead of BD Research Centre Ireland. BD, or Becton Dickinson, is one of the largest global medical technology companies in the world and has had a presence in Ireland since 1964, with 3 manufacturing operations here. Padraig leads its research centre in Limerick. And I'd like to congratulate Padraig and his team on last week's expansion announcement of 130 high-quality jobs in engineering and scientific disciplines, along with a €70 million investment. In addition, a fortnight ago, their manufacturing site in Drogheda announced 100 new jobs and a $70 million investment. Next to Padraig is Fiona Egan. Fiona is the Managing Director of Rabobank Ireland. Rabobank is a long-established Dutch cooperative bank focused primarily on servicing the food and agricultural sector internationally. It provides a full range of services in the Netherlands and is present in every continent globally, providing predominantly corporate banking services. Rabobank is operating in Dublin since 1994, providing banking for food and ag companies in Ireland, along with back and middle office support for the whole of Europe and UK, centralised in Dublin. Seated beside Fiona is John Reardon, who in recent weeks retired as Chairman and Director of Support with Shopify. He is also the Chairman of Grow Remote. Grow Remote is a social enterprise with a mission to enable people to work, live and participate locally. As a community development organisation with over 140 chapters across Ireland and beyond, it sees remote work as a key driver of local and regional development by unlocking job opportunities and making them available to everyone, regardless of location. And John's former company, Shopify, is a company that's a lot younger than Becton Dickinson or Rabobank. It was founded in 2004 and today is a cloud-based commerce platform designed primarily for entrepreneurs and small and medium-sized businesses. It has been operating in Ireland since 2015, employing approximately 750 people in a fully remote model across all regions of Ireland. So if I could start with you, John. In 2020, your CEO announced that Shopify was going to become a digital by default company and that office centricity is over. Can you tell me about that, John, and what has happened since that decision?
It's an interesting definition because what happened right at the pandemic was an announcement that the company, as you said, was digital by default. That was stage 1. Stage 2 was digital by design. So the first couple of months, in fact, the first year was embracing that evolution, embracing the level of change. So while many people may well view Shopify as a fully remote company, like I said, it's just a recent phenomenon. Prior to March 2020, 60% of the company was office-based and about 35 to 40% were home-based. And that was primarily in the customer support organization. So what happened was you had the ingestion of this other 60%. And how that actually worked was, I suppose the 3 key things to bring the rest of the company along in the journey was, first point was enablement. We enabled the teams at Shopify by providing all of the basics, laptops, cameras, standing desks, proper chairs, etc. All of the stuff that would be, common practice in an office setting, we provided in the home setting. Shopify also engaged all of the employees on a daily basis in terms of, pop-up or stand-up meetings and a variety of kind of quasi-social and work-related things, just to make sure that people had that level of connection, that level of community right from the off. But the critical thing was that we empowered the teams by doing the single most important thing was we showed that we trusted them. And really, at the end of the day, real trust brings real performance. So yes, digital by default at first, but now digital by design.
Okay, and Fiona, in your own experience over the last 22 months of COVID, you went from a working environment to fully remote. Can you just talk to me a little bit about that and how that's going to impact on your future work policies?
Yeah, so we were 100% in the office, or more or less 100% in the office, and we went to 100%, like many organisations, at home. But then what we quickly did over the course, well, at the very beginning, not realising it was going to be, COVID was going to be as long as it turned out, is we developed a flexible working policy for this new hybrid model. In hindsight, it was terribly basic, so it has evolved over time. It involves a number of days in the office and a number of days at home. It includes staggered hours, part-time, etc. But what we came to learn, Mary, over time is that there is no one size fits all. That was the biggest learning for us. It depends very much on the nature of your job, the team that you're working in, but also the age and character of the individual and the stage of their development. So we delegated and empowered team leaders to figure it out amongst their teams. And this is very much for when we started going back into the office, how they wanted to work it. So what model worked for them as opposed to worked for the organisation as a whole. And that has worked really well. But it will continue to evolve, and we will just keep tweaking it as we go along to make sure it works. What I think has been really important is listening to people and getting feedback. We do quarterly staff engagement surveys, and we get feedback from people every quarter. We've been doing that for years. And what I find interesting is, despite the fact that our scores have always actually been pretty high, we had our highest score at our last one, which was about a month ago. And that's really heartening. I think we're doing something right. So that's the way we're moving going forward. But like I say, it'll continue to evolve.
And that's interesting, that you are, so new to this and getting that positive feedback, which is terrific. And clearly your listening skills are working very well. John, Shopify has been remote working in Ireland since 2015. Are there any tips that you would provide to Fiona and to all of us, around successful remote working? Very conscious, obviously, of the whole area of culture and managing high performance teams in that environment.
I'll go back to the point I made earlier on. I think the most important thing is trust, and the trust must be inherent. And what I would encourage people to do is remember the time when you looked across the table in an interview or post-interview and offered somebody a job. That feeling of unbridled trust that you had in that individual, that's what you need to live up to. That's the standard you need to live up to every day. And we need to trust our people to do the job and manage in terms of the outputs, and not manage in terms of some nebulous criteria of presenteeism or anything like that. So that's the first thing. Second one, which Fiona referred to, is this whole concept of engagement. We've got to continually survey employees. We've got to continually listen. We have to be ears open all the time to find out what are the key issues. A third one, which rarely gets mentioned as a frontline issue, but I think it really needs to be, is the whole concept of mental health. Having a mental health, having a poor day when you're at home and you don't have a colleague with you, that's a tough environment. However, if you work for a company where talking about a crappy day and actually being able to lean out to somebody and actually talk to them about the challenges that you're facing, that's a hugely empowering thing. So I would encourage and advocate that people talk about mental health from day one. This is not a day, this is not 1 year in. This is in training. This is in onboarding. This is making it okay for people to talk from a point of vulnerability. And once a company can turn vulnerability into a key strength, now you're onto something.
And that certainly has been, a feature of the remote working that's also part of the COVID environment that it's been done under. Pádraig, can I ask you about remote working from an advanced manufacturing perspective? Because the majority of your teams have been obviously working on site continuously. On the back of all that's happened in the recent years, where you are seeing more remote, more hybrid working models, how is that going to impact your work model for over the next few years? Will there be changes that you'll be making, or have you made changes in recent times?
Yeah, we have. I mean, we're in a position where we have people working under many different models. You correctly say lots of people who are lab-based, who are floor-based, need to be in on a 9-to-5 basis or on whatever regular basis. But conversely, we have lots of folks who can work from home, work remotely. So making sure that we have a consistent sense of inclusion and belonging across people who are working in both of those scenarios is something that's really kind of important to us, and making sure that nobody feels left out or feels like they don't have opportunities. There's this. We've done a lot of work prior to the pandemic around conscious inclusion, removing biases from the work. We've potentially introduced another bias, proximity bias, now that we're very focused on as well.
What is proximity bias?
I suppose it's the thought of or the concept that if you're in the office and you're beside people who are in leadership positions or of influence, that by dint of being close to them and working with them on a day-to-day basis, opportunity might be more forthcoming for people in that cohort. So we've I suppose put a lot of effort into making sure that people are given opportunities to manage by the outputs, as John just mentioned. I mean, in manufacturing, outputs were always what we're looked at anyway in terms of hitting your production targets. Making sure that the output for on a given week, month, shift or whatever is being targeted. We're bringing that forward almost to kind of some of the R&D based stuff. We're managing at an expectation level, not at a task level. It's trusting the teams, empowering them to sign up to a level of output, and we come back afterwards and say, okay, if we didn't meet our expectations, let's dig in a little bit deeper and see what happened there, and trusting the teams to make a decision that when they do need to be in the office to access the infrastructure, they will come in. The teams will manage themselves and provide supports. And if somebody needs to spend some time, head down at a PC, analyzing some data or writing a protocol or whatever it may be, that they take the time to do that, and maybe it suits you to be at home. It's all about doing what's sensible, really, and offering the flexibility that people have got used to and crave now. This needs to be kind of driven. It's a bottom-up approach. I think the days of a top-down edict about how you must work is gone, and that's probably one of the biggest changes we see going forward.
And I presume trust, listening, and all those key nuggets that we've got from Fiona and John apply in the manufacturing and research environment in the same way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Trust is key. I think and John made a very good point there about the day you offer a job to somebody to trust you, empower them. I mean, no different to many of the other leaders I've met, and I'm sure the panelists here today. I mean, we're astounded by some of the talent that we've been able to attract. We trust them to solve some of the most complex problems facing humankind, in our case, in the healthcare environment. And, to think that we couldn't trust them in other aspects is kind of laughable. And I think that's something that we've, as a purpose-driven organization, have really kind of tried to walk the walk in that regard and offer people that trust, and empower them. And it's been reaping rewards and reaping dividends since.
And you have a very large number of international employees on your team. Are they working here in Ireland, or are they working overseas?
So we have, in Limerick alone, where I'm based, we have 29 different nationalities, which is kind of, when you stop to think about it, it's kind of a little bit overwhelming. This time of the year is obviously, a big, a lot of celebration around traditional Irish holidays and whatnot. But we've got to be conscious that some of the people that come and work for us don't necessarily have their celebrations at this time of the year. They have them at different times. So making sure that we're being inclusive and consciously inclusive of that, offering people opportunities to take time off or to work around their schedules is all part of it as well. I think we all learn from each other as well. We all learn. We have great fun on site. Learning about different cultures. It adds to the belonging and sense of community within an organization when people can share some of their traditions and some of their different differences within their nationalities and cultures and whatnot. So I think that's been really positive from my point of view. Yeah,
it's terrific. And I expect, because you're leading the R&D centre in Limerick, digitalization, is obviously a key piece of advanced manufacturing as well as the research arena. Can you just talk to me a little bit about how digitalization, which I know is a key element of your corporate strategy, how that's impacting BD?
Yeah, I mean, it's digitalization and connected healthcare is one of the key drivers and key pillars on which our growth strategy is based. We see three irreversible forces in healthcare, and the first is around connected devices. Using the data that's been generated. We've 2 million smart devices in the market at the moment, in hospitals, in clinical settings, all gathering and generating data. Looking at ways to help make smarter and faster decisions around that are key drivers for us. The other two being moving healthcare closer to where people want to be treated. So the tradition's no different than the future of work. The future of healthcare is going to be treating you where you want to be treated, and not having to necessarily go into the acute setting. And the third one is around helping people live with chronic disease and live happier and healthier lives when you're dealing with that kind of stuff. Around the digitalization, we have we're a healthcare company, but we're really competing with companies in the IT space. We've over 2,500 software engineers, data scientists, people working in that side of things, which is kind of strange to think of it. I think a company like BD 15 years ago, wouldn't have dreamt of having that many software engineers as employees. So that just really speaks to it. We see an opportunity really to automate and to bring forward more advanced ways of dealing with lots of processes that were very manual in the past. Combating a chronic labour shortage, but also adding more integrity and reducing opportunities for human error when people are being treated as well are really kind of areas that we try to hit.
Yeah, no, and it's terrific, and maybe I'll come back to you a little bit about that, because it's obviously a huge focus, the whole area of research and development, digitization of government strategy and indeed national strategy. So I'd like to come back to you again on that. Fiona, in recent years, we have certainly seen, a huge disruption in banking and in financial services with the emergence of new players, across the marketplace. And there's a huge focus, obviously, as well on digitization, on automation, and a significant drive, in recent years in particular, on the whole area of online banking for the customer. In that regard, what has it meant for Rabobank? And obviously, what has it meant for your employment base here?
So digitalization is a huge priority for Rabobank and all financial services centres, financial services companies globally. There is billions of euros being invested in this area globally. For us, it's all about the customer experience. So if you think about how we all go about our day, we buy our food online, we buy our clothes online, we buy our books online, and really we're probably buying a lot of our financial services online as well. So what it means for us, really we look at it from the retail and the corporate side is quite separate, the strategies there, but from the retail side, our biggest priority is the development of an online app on your phone. So for the likes of me and you, going into a branch will be a thing of the past. We have seen everywhere that there's been, a retrenchment in branch numbers, and that's just going to accelerate. But there will come a time, Mary, where I think from a retail perspective, there be very little face-to-face contact. You will apply for your mortgage, your car loan, you'll open a savings account, you'll do everything on your app, on your phone. So that's the way we're going here. From the corporate side, it's a little bit different. I think there'll always be that face-to-face contact needed. It's just a completely different business. There's certain areas that have been automated, like our markets area, companies that are executing foreign exchange swaps, commodities, etc. That would all happen now on platforms online. Things around analytics, analysing numbers, anti-money laundering. A lot of that has been now moved very quickly to software-based tools. Even our training is happening virtually now. Rapid changes there, more to come. But I think on the corporate side, like I say, which is my business here in Ireland, that face-to-face contact will always play a role. The big change there for us is we're setting up or developing a business portal for our customers. Customers would still probably ring us for information, whereas now they'll be able to go in and access that information themselves. What does it mean for us? It means in terms of skills will change. People will have to be more agile in the way they approach their jobs. Some will go fully automated, some partially. So they're going to have to look to the future, I think, and arm themselves accordingly. What we are finding is that there are gaps in the labour market on the technical side of things. So there's huge opportunity for young people in that space. I think the whole area of the STEM or STEAM subjects, I think they're called now, is just going to get bigger and bigger. I'd like to see it come to the fore more for girls as well. It's at the moment, girls are kind of behind on those particular subjects than boys. And I see it happening already in school. So it's actually already happening at that stage. That's where it needs to happen. And that'll carry through to college and into the work. So skills definitely are going to change, and people are going to have to adapt accordingly.
And I think, you know, that's absolutely true. I know for sure that it's a global phenomenon, really, the whole area of STEM skills and then that gender balance piece that's required along the way. But I am also very conscious that I suppose one of the advantages that we have in Ireland is that we have the kind of highest level of STEM graduates from 20 to 29-year-olds in Europe. So I think that's something for us to build on in line with what you're saying. And I think that's, you know, it's very positive. And a lot of work has happened to date, but clearly more needs to happen.
And huge opportunities.
And speaking of customer solution, John, can you talk to me a little bit about the remote working environment? I mean, we see technology companies constantly, you know, digitization and constantly, you know, moving towards continuous improvement. In that environment, you know, how does that happen? Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
The first thing I'd urge on this one, Mary, is patience. Because what we're experiencing now is really not remote work. It's scrambling at home to make do in a pandemic. It is not remote. It is not intentional remote work. So what I would urge is patience. It's taken us, you know, 100 years to figure out an office-first working model. And we've had, what are we talking, 20 months to get our arms around a remote-first working model. So what I would say is give it time. There will be a lot more innovation coming. Second thing would be in terms of acceptance. I remember a work-from-home pilot project that was being run by a major company. And this goes back to, I think, 2015, 2016. And the project was known as bunny slippers. And right there, you can see the inherent bias that existed in that company, viewing remote work as essentially a piece of trivia, as something that was kind of frivolous, by referring to it as bunny slippers. I think what the last 20 months has taught everybody is this is done intentionally and done correctly. This is a deeply professional element of the workplace. So that whole point of acceptance, I think, is something that we need to get out of this mindset that, you know, it's just roll out of bed, jump on a Zoom call type of thing. You talk to people who work from home and who have got a deeply professional focus on work from home, and they'll talk about mimicking a work commute where they go and they go walk the dog in the morning, they go and exercise in the morning, they do something to actually clear the head and get to work. It is not a roll out of bed, let me get on a call phenomenon. So, you know, acceptance to me is the second point. The third one I'd say is something that Fiona mentioned earlier on, again, is engagement. So we're seeing companies now track progress of this new way of working. And I think there's going to be an enormous body of data that's going to exist in terms of engagement. And the companies that are going to succeed are the ones who capture those new insights the best on whether remote workers are engaged or not engaged. What are the points of their work that are exacerbating negative and positive trends? Rates of promotion, the comment I made earlier on about people's both physical and mental health, companies that are looking and watching that, looking for trends. So I think we're going to see from a demographic perspective and from an engagement perspective, an enormous body of data that is well worth investigating and mining over the course of the next period of time. That leads on to the point of leadership. So what's going to happen in the leadership realm for companies that are looking to embrace remote work and embrace it pretty hard? What we're seeing in Grow Remote is that companies who tend to be embracing it better and over the first 20 months tend to be in the vanguard of acceptance of remote work and are eking out the benefits are companies that have appointed a single individual to be the leader of the remote initiatives. It's not necessarily a long-term, full-time role. However, to get companies comfortable and happy and productive in the remote world, what we're seeing is this trend towards having somebody maybe at the C-level or below that whose focus is enabling the company to make that transition, because it is not easy. You know, you look at hybrid working right now, everybody's talking about hybrid working. And I want to be very clear about it. That is the hardest version of it. You know, the full-time remote work is actually quite easy because it's pretty simple and pretty basic. You do it right. And the full-time office thing, which we've all done and we've all grown up in, that's actually quite easy. It's this 60% probably in the middle where it hasn't evolved yet and it is a complete gray area. That's incredibly difficult. Yeah. And what we're seeing is more and more, so many companies are actually diving into this gray area and really, let's call it for what it is. It's a hedge. We're not quite sure, are we going to go back in the office? And we look at the raft of companies in the knowledge space over the past couple of months who've had a stop-start announcement of, we're going to be back in the office. Oh, no, we're not. And a lot of stuff is getting pushed out to even late into 2022. So for this large group in the middle that is currently saying hybrid, that's the big challenge, because what is it going to be? So there's an awful lot of work to be done. So I would say, I would go back to the 3 points again: patience, acceptance, and looking hard at the data.
Okay, thanks, John. And I think, patience is something that we all need all the time. And Pádraig, I said that I'd actually go back to you around the whole area of advanced manufacturing and research, and bearing in mind, patience and enabling environments, etc. Can you just talk to me a little bit about, Ireland from a digitalization perspective? In order for it to be fully embraced in advanced manufacturing, what is it we are doing or we need to do as a country to maintain our competitiveness in this area?
I think we're doing a lot right. As a company who's heavily involved in advanced manufacturing, and we've looked at. We touched earlier on about the talent that Ireland is generating around the proportion of STEM, graduates that we put out there. That doesn't go unrecognized with companies like BD and others. That's why we tend to set up bases here. One of the reasons, is access to the talent. I think the ecosystem around, like the IDA's Advanced Manufacturing Centre on our doorstep in Limerick is something we're hugely excited about getting involved in and helping to de-risk some of that work up front for us as well, and take some of the fear out of it. Confirm as well, another group, Science Foundation Ireland group, but also the kind of what really has kind of, whetted our appetite is the innovative nature some of the universities are taking as well. Like we're heavily involved in the immersive software engineering, a new course in University of Limerick as sponsors there. Something that's kind of blown our minds, but also when we take it back to the guys in the US as a new way of teaching software engineers and teaching them by doing in a studio-based learning. That's something that's, really innovative, not on an Ireland level, but on a global level, to think about things in that way. So there's lots of things that we are doing very well, and I think we're well positioned globally. I think the country is being viewed as a leader and definitely not a laggard in that space. So I think we are, as a company, looking to tap into lots of that. I think, obviously, the things that we need to kind of catch up on are roll out of the National Broadband Plan, which is going quite well, and I think that'll be a further enabler with allowing people to do a lot of this work remotely and from home,
Fiona, Balance for Better Business launched its 4th report last month, showing improvements in females on Irish boards. It's positive. We've moved up to 12th position from 17th for women on company boards of the largest companies in the EU 27. But we have more to do on female representation on boards and representation on leadership roles as well. I suppose my question is twofold. As a leader who's female, do you think gender balance is improving across organisations globally? And what do you think business could do to do so?
Yeah, so I saw that report. I think the numbers are heartening in relation to the board membership. In terms of leadership positions, I think we're a bit behind. Actually, there has been progress, but it has been slower than I think we'd like to see. In fact, I did read in that report that still only 1 in 5 leadership positions on listed companies are held by women. So that's 20%. Bearing in mind, women represent 50% of the population, 50% of the talent pool, and probably 50% of your customer base. So I think there's still quite a bit of a way to go there. And the way I view this, we've got great gender balance in Rabobank in Ireland. 52% of our total staff are women. On our management team, 60% are women, 40% are men. And then we also do a higher leadership diploma in conjunction with University College Cork for our top talent, and that's 50-50 men and women are on that programme. And the way we do it, Mary, and the way I think it needs to happen is by nurturing women at the very, very beginning of their career. So you need to build that pipeline of talent from the very, very beginning, so that by the time you're getting to a stage of looking for people in leadership positions, that you have the talent pool there. But if you don't do it from the kind of the grassroots, and by the way, this needs to start at the home. It needs to start in school, where women or girls are encouraged in a certain direction. How do we go about doing that? There's loads of different ways. We talked about flexible working policies earlier. That needs to include family-friendly policies, because sometimes the women themselves just opt out when it comes to a certain stage, because they just feel they can't balance and juggle it all, particularly with kids. So family-friendly policies is a very good starting point, because actually that looks after the partners as well as the women. And I think the Dutch are particularly good at this, by the way. I think they're at the forefront of this when I look globally. This is something they've been doing for decades.
I also think succession planning is obviously hugely important as well.
Succession planning, again, that all comes into it.
Yeah,
and that's like part of building your pipeline, so that you're building that succession all the way through the organisation. We do KPIs as well for hiring people, but there's no point in having KPIs if you don't have the talent pool to draw from, because you need the right individual at the end of the day.
For sure.
Yeah.
Thank you. On that then, Padraig, from a BD perspective, are there things that you do within BD to manage gender balance, or how does it work in BD?
Yeah, I mean, I echo a lot of what Fiona just said about Rabobank there, as well. I think, we're the vast majority of our hires and talent is in the STEM area. So trying to, first of all, increase the cohort of females looking to, embark on a career in that direction is our primary concern. Making sure that enough are going into the pipe to begin with, but then you got to make sure the pipe isn't leaky once they're in there, that people have the supports in place, that the flexible working policies are in place. We have a lot of what are called associate or employee resource groups as well. One of our strongest ones that's sponsored at the very highest level of the organisation is Women's Initiative in STEM, so WinSTEM as we call it. And that's, by the way, that's open to members of from all comers. Myself, I'm the local executive sponsor of it, and it's really a really positive experience as well to just have an opportunity for females to speak to leaders who've gone through the same challenges, who have felt the same vulnerabilities, who it's not there isn't a need to have a persona where everything is perfect here. That people feel it's okay to have some of those fears, because I think sometimes, as you said, women will tend to opt out because some of the supports may not be there. But here, listening to that cohort and sharing that their change can be affected based on that is something that we have paid a lot of attention to. And we have a lot of external supports with bursaries in different universities for underrepresented cohorts as well. And it's just an really important driver for BD.
Yeah, it is for sure. John, very briefly on remote working, obviously, you know, the whole area of gender balance is critically important. And I think, without a doubt, there tends to be a lot of females in the remote working roles. Is there anything that can be done there to improve that balance?
Yeah, I think the remote working arena is representative of the general workspace, and all the numbers that the guys have already quoted would be the same in the remote working space. One thing I want to key in, and that both of them said, was in terms of policies. I think we all need to, from an allyship perspective, every one of us needs to actively campaign for and to encourage paternity leave. And encourage the taking of it, because we need to get to a stage where there is no such thing as paternity leave and maternity leave. It's called what it is, which is parental leave. And from an allyship perspective, I think that's a critically important point. And also to key in on what Fiona said as well, I would actively challenge everyone to get involved very early stages in promoting STEM in schools, particularly in Ireland with transition year. There's some great organisations like I Wish that do a tremendous amount of work for the age 16 cohort, because that is where we show people the future opportunities.
And I think we are seeing an increase in that whole area of, you know, collaboration with schools and industry, and obviously that does need to go from strength to strength. So look, we're almost out of time, and unfortunately we could keep talking for a lot more. So if you don't mind, could I ask you, each of you, one last sort of rapid fire 30-second, one sentence response question. And it is going back to some of the things we've been talking about. If there's any one thing or one aspect of the workplace today that would sort of add further value to the future, in your view, what would it be? And perhaps I'll start with you, Fiona, because you're looking directly at me. Thank you.
For me, it's definitely, it's a combination of more progression in the gender space, a lot more to do there. But we talk a lot about D&I, and we don't talk so much about the I piece in the D&I. I don't hear so much about the inclusivity piece. I'd really like to see more there.
Okay. John?
I'd say hire the best talent, no matter where they're located, and that will enable and empower them to live, work, and participate in their local communities. We talked about software engineering as a great example earlier on. We need to focus on their code, not their air code.
Okay. And Padraig, can I have your view on it, please?
Yeah, so I think, our organisation, like many others, our most prized, our most precious asset is the talent. It's also probably our most delicate, and we need to treat it, as carefully as possible. It goes back to what we said earlier around, organisations will have to start, listening more closely to what their talent is telling them. Listening to what's making life difficult for them, or what makes life more easier and can make them more productive. I think that's what's going to have to be a big change.
I think it's pretty clear to see that our future is all around talent and ensuring that we have it and retain it and then grow it as well. So thank you very much, Padraig, Fiona and John, for all of your time this afternoon. I'd love to continue, but unfortunately time has passed and we do need to wrap up. So for me, I'd just like to say it's been great to have John, Padraig and Fiona to share their perspectives on the future of work. As we can see, one size does not fit all, and there is so much to consider. Change is constant and the future is exciting, but it will require the continued collaborative approach between government, industry, education and other stakeholders to ensure that this new world of work brings benefits to all. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.